welcome to the Download Youth Ministry web show. Doug Fields here with the Queen, Katrina Edwards, Josh Griffin, the slim, thin 284.
Working on it, 284. 5 to go before I can play Xbox.
Wow, and then the pendulum swings.
I have it ordered.
To former host,
Also
Matt
284.
McGill.
I like the shoulder rub, and I didn't even say anything bad this time. This is good.
He's getting you fired up for the show.
I actually talked to
I'm
a
already
youth worker
fired
this
up.
weekend. I was in Indianapolis and
Where'd you get that shirt?
Houston and San Antonio, and a youth worker says, he was telling me about how much he loves the podcast and stuff like that.
You're welcome.
He says, my favorite, sometimes I spit on the computer when McGill says things, like I just laugh
That's
so hard.
awesome.
He goes, but your look of disappointment, if I could just do screenshots of your look of disappointment at Matt.
That's a
I
great
said,
call.
really? I
And
didn't know
true.
that I had a look of disappointment.
Are you kidding?
It's just
That's
one
what I
single
like.
tear sometimes. Just a single tear.
This
goes-
is show
Tattooed
227.
tear right here.
And here's what we're gonna do. We just decided while we were waiting for Matt.
Just on the spur of the moment.
We are gonna do the volunteer
So
show.
spontaneous.
I like
the
it.
volunteer show. So we have your questions, and it could be that the questions aren't that good, and that we need more questions, but they are good.
Probably
but
not.
Send in your questions to webshow@downloadyouthministry.com. That's webshow@downloadyouthministry.com.
Just appeared right here on the screen.
Let's.
No, it didn't. It's gone.
Oh,
It's gone.
that's cool.
If we had a board to hold up, it'd be the only
Hey,
way.
The reality is, now that Matt doesn't upload the shows, they are actually going up on a
They
timely
are.
manner,
Yeah.
which puts pressure on us to have another show. So we've got, we want to thank, who do we want to thank? Our primary sponsor, You Specialties.
Thank you.
I
Definitely
don't want to
wanna
thank
them.
anybody at this point.
You don't?
No, I haven't.
How was leading the show last week on your own?
The show was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there was a big gap, and Griff tried to sit in your chair.
I
which
watched the
thought,
first
obviously he'd never
4
played
minutes.
a team sport before in his life.
Well, you know what I was most excited about?
Quarterback goes down, you got to jump in and take care of business.
You know what I was most excited about watching the show?
Unfortunately,
The sound.
was the band
Was it-
sound
it was
bad?
good?
Good. I thought the
It
sound
was good.
I
That's
heard
interesting.
somebody commented it on something.
Well, I only watched it till like 5 minutes.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't even get good till like 9:18.
We hit like a little bit of a stride.
Did you? You,
It took
you
a
need to let me
while.
know when that is so I can fast forward to it.
9:18.
Hurt people, hurt people.
No, I was. It
It's
was,
hard when someone's missing though, because we
Someone
have
of
such
your-
a-
it was always. It was
Caliber,
all the
you're
comments
legendary.
of geezerly, old,
Yeah, that or your
paper.
vacation,
Katie even
cake,
went
food.
after me.
No, I
leathery.
didn't.
Katie
No, I
went
didn't.
after me.
Sun
It
kiss.
was nice to know that my best friends didn't even know where I was. I think he's. I don't know where. I don't know.
I know, we didn't know where you were. You
Yeah.
gotta
We're
communicate
so
better.
in demand.
Relationships.
Yeah. The man
How
man.
would we know?
Okay, here's the show. It's the volunteer show, gang, and here's what we're gonna do. We have just sprung this on them, so we're gonna take a volunteer.
Yeah.
You and your
And
voices.
we're gonna talk about the volunteer, and then we're gonna say what we like about him. Then we're gonna tell you about our least favorite volunteer and what we learned from them. So, for example,
Without mentioning their name.
like the one that I talk about a lot when I talk to youth workers is I tell my story of Marv, who started doing youth ministry at 72.
Oh, save it for the show. Oh, wait, this is the show.
And there would be an example of like, hey, age is not a barrier.
Marv loves you. Don't get in there.
Yeah. So it's great.
You know Marv. I've heard you share that story from
Matt, you love the old
Pretty
Marv
much
story.
heard all my stories. And
Were you a student?
Yeah,
when
Marv was
Okay.
the best. Not too good dodgeball, but
You're welcome for that.
I'm gonna give you the shoulder. I'm sorry.
You give him the shoulder.
Shoulder of I'm sorry. It's a great stories. I mean, that's really what it is. We're not making fun of bad stories.
A little bit.
No, they're great stories. They really are.
well, if you
Totally
guys had
got
any
you.
original content that I could copy and listen to, I would do that as well.
Seriously.
We tried last week.
Fell right flat.
All right. Hey, we also
right.
want to thank Youth Ministry 360 Leader Tracks.
We want to thank you.
Leader Tracks. Gosh darn it. Do you guys know how good they are?
They're good.
And they're providing our student leadership material for our DYM membership, which if you're not a DYM member,
$20 a month.
what is going on?
Yeah.
It's not even $20. It's $19.95, so you feel like it's less than $20. But
And you get
essentially
$20 free, and then 7 items.
Yeah, a bunch of store
It's the
credits.
best deal. I challenge you to give me a better deal in youth ministry.
Wow.
Wow.
I
Threw
kinda
down
like
the
that.
gauntlet right
I kind
there.
of like that. That's actually not a bad idea.
Challenge,
Yeah.
because it's a pretty good deal.
It is a
It's
great
not a
deal.
pretty good deal. It's a great deal.
Yeah. I mean, even for people don't like to be called cheap. I've discovered this in the last couple weeks.
Yeah,
that
don't
people
call it.
who are cheap, they don't like to be called cheap. I
We
would think.
just learned
thrifty.
that right now.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things Matt in his 40s is beginning to
I'm committed to being a lifelong learner. I don't know about you guys.
We had a text thing going on today, and Matt was like, "So and so said," and I'm like, "Matt, they were not telling you the truth." Then I had to pause. I thought, "Oh, Matt, for years,
McGill
has
trusts people.
Just because somebody says something
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's what they mean."
Exactly right. There's a hidden meeting.
It's the volunteer show.
Unfortunately, that's
and
just
Humankind
me.
Water, who we miss, APU, love APU, and you can see that by our backdrops that.
I know it's hard not
I know.
having our
What's
people
happening here?
behind us.
Yeah.
Well, we need to. I don't know. We
we
need to charge more for our membership.
I challenge you to find a backdrop for this podcast.
All right, so I'm gonna pick one of my favorites. Here's one of my favorites. One of my favorites is Jim McNeff. Okay.
Stud.
Jim McNeff is a great volunteer, and one of the things that I love about Jim is he was we found Jim as he was doing security detail at Saddleback. So I know this is not just our church because I spoke at a church this Sunday in San Antonio, and they had security. And so it's just somebody watching the pastor in case anything weird or wild happens. And so when Rick Warren would be out of town and I would preach, there would be security people. I need time. I don't have my watch.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
We interrupt this story to bring you.
So anyway, he would always talk to me about teenagers. And I, like, after the 5th week of us talking about teenagers, I said, Jim, why are you doing security?
Because he was a cop.
He was a cop, exactly.
makes
And it was
sense,
the
right?
most natural thing for him.
Yeah.
But I said, it sure seems like you have a heart for kids. And I said, why don't you come check it out? And he was unsure and the whole bit, and then for me, I'm kind of also going cop, youth worker. I don't know. He talks a good game, but Jim came in, he was so faithful, and he was smart and loving, and I mean, for an older guy, he just yoked, totally ripped, and he could.
Which always enhances your ministry.
How you're described now as an older guy.
Exactly.
You just
feel just so yoked. But anyway, I loved his heart. But here's what I like. The reason I picked him is because he was serving in an area where he was probably a B to an A minus. But when he moved over to youth ministry, he was an A+.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I just feel like he was a guy that was not in his, and then we moved him from security.
Yeah, and when you
Rick
say
Warren
B
actually
minus-
got shot.
I take a bullet
But
for
he
you.
wasn't. When you say B minus, he wasn't really ministering to his full potential.
Yeah, I don't mean like a B minus, like he was
He was a
turning his
sucker or
back.
something.
Yeah, no, he was.
Rick Warren
he
got
was
shot
good
while
at
he
what
was
he
on
did.
duty.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even.
He just wasn't alive. It wasn't alive. Like
Right.
he
His
came
passions.
alive. And so I think the learning there is there are people who are in ministry settings that are doing the job. They're checking the boxes. They're showing up on time, the whole bit, whatever you need them to do. But they're not most alive.
Yeah.
And I think youth ministry offers opportunities for people to come alive in different areas, and sometimes we just have to challenge their assumptions.
Yeah.
And even within youth ministry, we might have people doing things that they're in youth ministry, but we've assigned them to a task where they're not alive, and we might need to just adjust that task a little bit. And
good.
but it requires knee-to-knee, eye-to-eye conversations. It requires us saying, hey, maybe what makes you come most alive, or when you think about our youth ministry, what is one thing that you wish you were doing that you're not, or it really is not just saying, oh, I filled a spot, let me turn my back and go after the next volunteer. It's really going back and caring for those volunteers. Okay, so that's mine. Jim
I like
McNeff.
it. Yeah, so who's around you today that just needs that nudge, that conversation? I love
That's
it.
the principle.
That's strong. Good. Who's next?
Katie.
Katie's up.
Well, one of my
Start strong.
one of my favorite volunteers who actually has been a volunteer longer than I've been around. His name's Gary Iltz, and one of the things that I love about Gary is when I started, he was a volunteer in our junior high ministry, one of like 3 or 4 volunteers, and he has been faithfully serving in our junior high ministry for almost 25 years. which is kind of unheard of in junior high ministry, I think, or at least.
And he's not creepy.
He's not. He's wonderful, and he's wonderful. He's so great. And one of the things that I've loved is he actually, I think, trained me as a volunteer, and
Yeah,
has
'cause
even
he was
trained
there
me as
before
a
you
staff
were there.
member. Totally, I've learned so much from him. He is such an encouraging man. He is so awesome. Every single Sunday, he serves at our 9 a.m. service. He has for years and years, and he is a note writer. And so it's totally where I learned to kind of be a follow-up encourager.
That's cool.
Every single weekend, he writes a postcard, or he'll come up to me and be like, hey, who's that student who sang in the band this weekend? She looks new. Or, hey, who gave the testimony this weekend? Or he is just adamant
That's
about
awesome.
follow-up and encouragement. And I've seen it the entire time I've been in ministry with him, of just his ability to just encourage and love on students, week in and week out. And he's played a lot of different roles over the years, camp and small group leader and that kind of thing. But he's just this avid follow-up encourager, youth pastor in students' lives. And that, I definitely think a passion for encouragement has grown out of watching him in action. And I think so watching him volunteer has inspired me along the way so many times. So I just love it. His faithfulness, week in and week out. His own kids have come and gone through our ministry, and now he has, one daughter in our ministry, and he's still as alive today in our junior high ministry as he was when I started 20 years ago. So it's just really cool to watch him even coaching and mentoring all of our younger high school students that come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's just this
So how do you encourage an encourager?
That's a good question. I mean, I think for Gary, he just loves the relationship that we all have in ministry. I think he's had seasons where maybe he has liked junior hires, but he hasn't loved them as much. Or he's had seasons where he's been like, oh man, I'm kind of tired
Nobody
of the grind.
really likes junior hires.
I do. But
You say so many of these extreme statements. Remember the other one that we edited the show about? Now, come on.
Which one?
Skin cancer?
oh gosh.
Why are you bringing that up? I thought I'm going to edit it. I was
think,
joking. Of course, people love. You gave me the look like I was alienating half our audience. Just
third,
joke.
probably.
We're all joking.
Do you want me
That's
to
it?
And
talk?
scene.
I don't know what to do. No, I think the relationship that you build with your volunteers, the community, I think is a really cool thing that sometimes keeps them rolling even when they have their seasons. Like Gary hasn't always been, every single weekend, I love this, I love this, I love this. He's had seasons where he's kind of come and gone, but the relationship between the other volunteers and with me and, with some of our other staff has been really cool. And I think so that family community piece, creating that has kind of helped him weather 25 years of junior high ministry. So if I would have a principle, it would be building team and community and sharing life together, I think is such an encouragement to your volunteers for the long haul. If you want to keep them with you for a long, long time, I think we've worked really hard to make them feel like family. So
Absolutely.
they're not walking away from junior hires, they're walking away from family when they would leave our ministry. So
Yeah, that's good.
Like the mafia.
kind of.
Well, and that you value here, let me tell you some principles I heard that I appreciate. Is one, he had some what we might call upward influence on you.
Absolutely.
So he, in a hierarchical scale, may not be your overseer or your boss, but he's definitely influenced you. So volunteers can lead up. Let us know if we're bothering you, Matt.
Anytime the Mish texts me, that takes away precedence over what else is going on.
For some of those
I feel the
younger
same way
youth workers
when
who
she
are
texts
coming
me.
into an existing volunteer team and who seem intimidated of those volunteers,
Yeah.
I think there's so much to learn from them.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great.
Yeah, the other thing that I think about too is leaders of volunteers is if you sense a volunteer has, if you were to take like the 5 love languages, not Gary Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Chapman? Yeah, Gary Chapman. The 5 love languages, you tend to display the love language that's most important to you. So for Gary, words of affirmation, words of encouragement are his love language as well. And so you see him as a leader displaying that with kids and other volunteers, then probably chances are pretty good that I could I could encourage him as well.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, why don't you write that down to make a note, to write him a note?
I do actually.
Do you?
Yes, he's someone who I try to faithfully just love on, and well,
Yeah.
because I don't want him to leave.
Yeah.
So I just want him to stay around
So
and be
not
with
to
us.
genuinely care for
No.
Yeah, no, it has nothing to do with
I just
pastoring,
feel
coaching,
like,
loving,
I don't know.
sharing.
I honestly don't know who I am without him as a volunteer.
That's
That's
fun.
fine. That's great. What a great statement. I don't
That
know
is
who I
bold.
am. That's good. Were we just talking about Katie's leadership the other
We
day?
were,
What was
yeah.
it? There was
We
some
talk about it every week because it's
No,
so
there was
awesome.
some situation. It wasn't on the podcast. It was me and Josh. We were talking
Yeah, where were we?
somewhere, and
Wyoming
you
or
were.
somewhere.
Yeah, you were
I
affirming her.
texted you guys about it. She made me cry. I'm meeting with somebody that was in the youth group for a long time ago, and this girl is now in. She's now in ministry herself, and so she had some questions. So we were talking about student leadership, and I said, hey, well, let me put you in contact with Katie, and she's like, oh, I remember Katie, but Katie, she won't remember me.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's
And then
right.
I sent Katie a text and said, hey, I meet with Katie.
you did
First thing she
remember
said was,
her,
oh, I
and-
totally remember her.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I know. Katie's the greatest.
She is.
We should actually have a show called Katie's the Greatest.
You know what?
That'll be
And
next
spend,
week.
spend
Let's
40
do
minutes
that.
just affirming Katie.
I like it. Matt's got nothing. We could probably just go to that right
Has
now.
Matt
if you
even been part of the
want.
show, or has he been? I had to just body language, just not
Yeah.
even see him.
No,
so I
just
don't-
rub his shoulder.
I don't get mad that he's on the phone during the
You're
show.
reading texts.
I'm
What are you
not
talking
reading
about?
text. I got a clock here.
Yeah.
Keep this thing
Do
moving.
you want me to clean up head, or you want Matt to go now?
Why don't we
guess-
let Matt go so we end
so we can end
strong?
strong.
I'm excited to hear who your favorite volunteer is.
I keep
then.
well. This
Or like a
Back in
favorite.
2002.
yeah. No, I keep just as I keep thinking
Kathy
about the
Fields.
story. I keep Kathy's great volunteer.
Don't steal mine, guys. I need
Wow.
No, I keep getting emotional. I remember our
gosh, please cry.
first.
Oh,
It's
Matt, this would
happened
be
the
a first.
whole time
Please
already.
cry.
Matt,
Jesus, I will tithe more. If he cries.
I will start tithing if That's a joke. 10%.
That's a joke. Hey, what about those junior high pastors? No, I remember.
Just in case. Is that all?
In case there's accountants out there.
Wow. All right, here we go.
No, I remember my very first volunteer staff meeting that was at Douglas Montgomery's house, and I remember right before the meeting going, okay, so what are we gonna, what's happening? What are we gonna do here? What's going on? And obviously I don't remember everything Doug said, but Doug said, this is the time we're gonna hang out. We'll do a little bit of training, but mostly hear people's stories and what they're doing, and obviously even back then I was less uncouth than I am now.
Less
and
McGill,
so I
as we
was
call it.
I was more McGill back then. I've just been rubbed fakes with you guys all these years, but I just had this look on my face of
Rubbed face.
Keep going.
I'm
Keep
trying
going.
to focus. I'm trying to stay focused here. But I just remember thinking, we're going to hear people's stories. Like, this is the most ridiculous. This is how we're going to spend our next 2 hours, and I'm sure that translated onto my face and probably my words too. So the meeting starts. We're in a house. We're in a living room, and I'm actually like laying down. I'm relaxed because I naturally feel comfortable everywhere I go.
Shirt
But
off,
when I'm told
Cheetos
to
on
be
your belly.
comfortable, I'm even more comfortable. And so I remember Doug goes, hey, you got to sit up because your body language, what it communicates to other people. And that made sense to me. Oh, yeah, I don't want people to think I'm not paying attention because I am paying attention. I just happen to be comfortable. So a couple people share, and I was correct. It was totally ridiculous until this makes me tear up. Sharon Pankhurst.
Who?
Sharon Pankhurst, Cherry, and she is talking about her 6 girls that she ran a little discipleship group or small group thing, and how they did a father-daughter tea, and the dads loved it. I mean, even though she even started like, how her dad's into tea, of course, but it was just an event that she did with her girls. All her girls, except for like 2, were like fringy type students that were quiet and didn't engage a ton, but it was so cool to see her passion. And so that's something
That's awesome.
that's what I love. That's why I think we're in ministry to some degree, is because it's what we're passionate about. You tapped into, Jim wasn't passionate, but then he was more passionate. Obviously, Gary's passionate because he stuck around for, a quarter of a whatever that century. Passion is huge. I mean, that's what we respond to. And hers was just pure, it was awesome. And I just thought that's what ministry is about. How do we help? How do I? But also, how do I help people get to love on their sick students?
Strong, dude.
So now you got to tithe more.
Wow.
Well, what I love about that is
Just with it.
you're just your confession that I led in a way that you thought wasn't going to make sense. Then you went, oh, it really worked.
That's been happening all the time.
I know.
It's been happening for 20 years.
It was just nice for you to confess it.
Yeah, that was what I got emotional about.
Who confesses.
I think that's a good principle too. Again, being younger in youth ministry and not realizing just the value of what our volunteers are doing week in and week out. I think sometimes, or I know early on, I came in thinking I knew more, I was more experienced or something. But then the more you give stuff away, the more you surrender, the more you listen to what's happening with your volunteers, the more you realize, I mean, they're really doing the better ministry than you sometimes. So
Yeah.
I mean, they're just hearing that story,
So if I'm a youth worker in my office during lunch,
Which some are.
Listening to the show right now.
yes, because
In Des Moines, Iowa.
I'm thinking of who I had lunch with on Friday at the Orange Conference.
And that's what
very
they
cool
do.
guy. That's what he does. He's on a staff of 4. And because I was asking him
I remember
about,
you saying that.
I was asking him about, like, do you ever go out to lunch with the pastor or the worship guy? And he goes, no, I just sit in my office during lunch, eat lunch, and watch the podcast.
Then you just grab his shoulder right then and just be like, dude, I'm so sorry.
No, but he had a great story. I said it was a great story with the senior pastor. I said you need to send that into the show because that'll be fun. So the principle is what? What's transferable to him? Is it look for people with passion? Is it pull out people's stories? Is it?
I think that's part of it. I mean, having people tell stories is powerful for the whole team. I'm going to have I work with adults, and I'm going to have the adult small group leaders over, and we're going to talk about the stories. I mean, I think it's great. I think for me, the challenge is, or the practical thing is, like, what gets you excited about ministry? Like, what is it, like, when you go home and go, oh, that was a great night? Like, was it because it was the biggest night? Was it because your sermon was smooth? Was it because you had a slick, graphics up on the screen? I mean, and those are things that, we do, we work for excellence, and we want things to be good, and we want things, but what are the things that really excite you the most? And should those be the things that are exciting you the most? I think if you're excited about a volunteer's passion for their kids, there's no way you're going wrong.
Yeah.
It's
good. Well, I think in the culmination of a bunch of those stories equals momentum. It sets expectations. Like people go, oh, I'm supposed to come to the next leaders meeting with the story. And I'm going to be thinking about that and thinking in terms of, this is the expectation that I would have events for my dads and their girls in my group like that. I like that. Just the original creativity, the freedom that you gave to your small group leaders to do that. That was one of the things I was pulling away from it, going, oh, that's not creative, not super awesome, but incredible at the same time. Like beautiful. So I think even letting your people have the space to try new things is a fun principle out of there too.
Yeah, Sharon Pinkers. Or Sherry. And Paul. Paul was good too.
Paul's great.
Yeah.
Paul's good too.
Yeah, husband and wife team. I remember years ago I videotaped them for some youth worker training thing I was doing, and she was telling a little bit of her story, and she said, Paul was telling a little bit of a story, and he says, I love those kids.
Yeah.
And he pauses. I just love those kids. And I just paused it and I rewound it, and said, listen to those words again, because I was not only delighted to share with you the gospel, but my life as well. You can't, when you share your life with people, you fall in love with them. And here's a guy, listen to him, doesn't look like a youth worker, probably at that time, late 50s, big old, bushy beard, was a geometry teacher or something like that.
Yeah, he taught math.
I love the kids. Just love those kids. I mean, it was so beautiful.
It's awesome.
So.
All three of the volunteers that we've mentioned.
Now, wait till he. Wait, let's see if we got a theme.
You've made the expectation too high.
Sorry.
He's not going to change
Wow.
his people.
I
you already
might
have your
change my
person?
people now.
No.
Who's your person?
Don't be rough.
I'll be.
Was it Doug when he was a volunteer for you?
I remember one of my favorite volunteers. Are we on bad volunteers? I'm saving Doug for that part. No, you're incredible. My volunteer of the week is Chip Bragg. Chip is one of my favorites. His real name is Lawrence. He's called Chip.
I did not know that.
I really
I am texting
Lawrence
no, I can't
Bragg.
wait till I see him. Though.
Lawrence Bragg, it's real. Here's what I love about Chip. He has seen it all. He has been a part of our ministry for 8 years. He was a small group leader, a weekend leader, went on missions trips before I was
He
even
hasn't
in
seen
the
it all.
picture.
I didn't see it when Doug and I were leading it.
That's right, but he's seen the golden years now. He is just an unbelievable man. I just appreciate him. There's a few things that I love about him. One, he will jump in to meet a need. So we have this report that we do for small groups, and it's a really important communication tool with some of our leaders. I just really like this thing, and no one could figure it out. And he's like, "Oh, I probably figured it out." And he had no experience with it, no idea. Just
He was
jumped
a rocket
in.
scientist.
Yeah. I mean, a Stanford degree. I think he's got to have something cooking. But he figured it out.
Bought his way in.
Exactly. Hey, can you help me?
What?
The guy is a stud. So we have this huge need. He just jumps in and fills it. One of the things that I love about him is he's a caterer. And so
He is?
a lot of his ministry revolves around food.
Oh.
And I just love this guy because the other night I was like, we need to have this ice cream trough, like hook rain gutters together just for something nuts and crazy with youth group or whatever.
That's
It's
on the ice
old
cream
school.
Sunday.
And he's like, well, I'll take that. I'll handle that. And start to finish, he's at Home Depot buying the rain gutter stuff and buying extra scooping ice cream and timing it so as we're doing the last song, they're putting the ice. I mean, he is so into food.
is
It's so important to him.
It's important to all of us.
It is. It's important to me too. And his love language is taking people out for food, but not because of the meal, not because of to have great conversations, to have insightful, deep, meaningful conversations with people. So he will spend $35 on dinner with a couple of his small group guys without even thinking about it, because he just wants a vehicle to have a conversation. He barely, it's funny, if you ever go out for a lunch or whatever, he will
Wants to set the
barely
table
eat his
for
food
Conversation.
because he just wants to talk. He just wants to be an active listener. He
That's the
just wants
difference
to point.
between him and us.
Oh, I know. And I'm wolfing stuff down. Oh, that's cool, Chip.
Are you gonna eat that?
Yeah. What about that's a nice looking potato.
That's why I eat so fast, actually, so I can spend time.
Well, and what I love about Chip, there's many things, obviously, but I love that he knows what he's good at and food-centered stuff, and he lives there. I love that he meets needs. He sees opportunities where we're dropping the ball or whatever, and he is all over it. And I also love that he's a survivor. And I have one little story about him. He had a major conflict with another person in our world, and it was not going well. And Chip is like, I just feel like maybe I should resign. Maybe I just feel like I need some space. This person, whatever.
Oh, why don't you tell us about that?
And what I told him was, Chip, you were here before that volunteer was ever part of our ministry.
Forget that person. Kick
And
them
you'll
to
be
the
here
curb.
when that person's gone. I said, Chip, you were here before me, and you'll be here after I'm gone. No, one single tear right now. I'm making an announcement. No, I'm not. But I just thought, and he just like rallied to that, going, yeah, this is my calling. This is who I am. This is what I'm all about. And talk about stories. Chip Bragg has a story. If you say, hey, what's happening in your life group this week? Out of his 7 guys,
He's got the elevator speech.
he will have 5 stories, and if you have time, he has 2 more. I mean, the guy he just loves and bleeds and breathes food and his dudes.
You know, one of the things that I love about him is that he stays in contact with his kids long past their graduation.
Yes.
I've noticed that about him.
Yeah.
One, he will employ some of them for his catering deal, but he stays in touch with them. I've seen him, I run into him in restaurants around here, and he's usually with a kid, oftentimes somebody who's graduated, and staying connected. I mean, the other thing you didn't mention that really isn't transferable, he's just darn funny, too.
He is funny.
is. You don't expect him to be funny.
So this week we had homecoming on Saturday night. So we lost half our student ministry goes homecoming. So whatever. So we decided we're gonna have homecoming pancakes to encourage students to come back on Sunday mornings. They missed church last night. Whatever. So he, of course, it's food. So he stepped up and volunteered. It's not just pancakes, but it's a pancake bar. So he's got coconut, powdered sugar, whipped cream, chocolate chips, Nutella, peanut. I mean everything. So he's flipping pancakes, and we do this for 2 weeks. We have a couple homecomings. First week he just shows up in a nice apron, does a great job. Week
nice
2,
That's it. Just an.
and over his clothes. Well, it's Chip. And then this week he comes, so we're having a homecoming again. So we have another full spread of food, and he's wearing a Superman onesie. Pajamas. He's flipping pancakes
next level.
in a
Next level.
Superman onesie. Now this is the best part. So we're dying. I'm taking pictures. I'm laughing the whole time. But what's great is this brand new family. Did you see this moment? This brand new family. The kid's name is Carter, and Carter, he's in this life group. He's introducing his mom and dad to Chip Bragg in a Superman onesie. It was
so endearing.
You get arrested in something.
the parents didn't even blink. They were just full on in. Their son was like, Chip is so great. We met this week in life group. I'm telling you, this is one of the best. After I leave high school ministry Catholic Church, he will be there long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
He will probably die in HSM.
Yeah.
The man is an incredible.
Well, he also loves
Hopefully
you,
not
Josh.
He'll be
You
buried in a
definitely
onesie.
invested in him, and I mean, one, he's easy to be with, and
Easy.
one of the things with leaders is you
And
tend
he
to
always buys.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a-
Remember when
that's
the
a high
podcast was
value.
catered, by the way?
That's a
Remember
high
when the
value.
podcast was
when
catered?
it was in my garage.
No.
We used to have catering?
Yeah, when it was with Brazel over at the old SYM offices.
Oh, we did
had
have lunch.
Chinese food
That was
or
pre.
That was pre-Katie, so
It
it
was
doesn't exist. It's dead to us.
Experienced that.
We need more sponsors to make that happen.
yeah.
We do have water
Maybe
now.
Brazel will sponsor.
But
us.
there is
Humankind
there
water.
is something about that
Yeah.
that when you tend to
Get on the
spend
phone with
time with leaders who who you enjoy. Okay, Katie, you and I were going in the same direction.
Oh, yeah.
I'm interested.
I don't know what direction you were going to talk about.
Well, I
His-
just
his
was,
fits also.
totally fits. So I was just thinking
You know
that,
what she's going to say? You
Yeah,
guys are on
'cause I
the
was
same
thinking
page
the
right
same
now?
thing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You look a little bit like a bumblebee with that shirt.
That's what he said.
Transformers.
Not trying to
cute
take
bumblebee.
that.
Just was assumed.
Okay.
No, I just, all of the volunteers that we have talked about, none of them are kind of what would fit into like stereotypical youth
Yeah,
workers.
'cause
They're all
that's
a
bad.
little bit older. It's not bad. I think it's a really good learning because I think when you
Young people don't know how to do anything.
And skin cancer part 3.
I would love for somebody, maybe Jerry Varner would do this, one of our faithful.
He's hilarious, by the way.
I
I've had some
wonder if he
email
would-
communications with him.
Here's my point. I was just going to say, I wonder if somebody would watch this back and see how many times Matt has interrupted everybody on this.
We
And
all
how-
interrupt each other.
How
What
many
are you
looks
talking
of
about?
disappointment?
We're not even.
One person calls it interruption.
Combined, the three of us have not interrupted more.
One
than
person
we
calls it interruption, another person calls it efficient conversation.
have. Tomato.
Title of the
You
show.
call it cynicism, I call it wisdom.
Anyhow, not typical
not
volunteers.
typical. I
Yeah,
mean, people
I like
that again have passion and a deep love for students, but at first glance would be you
looked
just
over.
wouldn't necessarily think, but.
Yeah. Well, and just to be more specific,
Yeah,
since our
totally.
people don't know who these people
Yeah.
are. Marv, obviously, I said I got him when he was
72.
72. Jim McNeff in his 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now what?
At the time, he was late 40s, mid
Yeah.
40s,
Definitely 40s.
Sharon Pankhurst, definitely 55.
40s.
Oh, yeah.
Gary's
Yeah,
late
50s.
50s now. Yeah.
Yeah, Chip hides his age really well.
He does hide his age.
Who knows? But
I
probably.
guarantee he's pushing. I'm
He's
50.
probably Ron's age, 50.
I'd say, yeah,
My husband, yeah.
48, 50, right in there. Yeah.
He's probably a little. He's probably a little younger
I mean,
than
I've
me.
had 20 conversations with him.
He's great.
22-minute
unbelievable.
conversations.
He is
He's,
He can
great.
play.
great.
He can play 40, but I bet you he's closer to me.
He can play. He totally does too.
I think he might be older than you, actually.
Really?
I'm gonna text him as soon as this is over and
Yeah.
tell him how
Text him
old
right
he
now
is.
so the show
Should
knows
we
how
have,
old he
should we
is.
have a bet?
Okay, I'll ask.
Okay, I'm gonna say I'm 50.
Ask
I'm gonna
him
say
if he'll.
49.
Ask him.
I
Tell
say
him you thought he
52.
was 35 and you want him to bring food to the podcast.
How old?
He would be fun on the podcast.
He would be great.
All right, so Seth, you got any wrap-up comments? You thinking of anything? Anything like you're going? You guys missed that or what? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I like how you pulled transferable principles out, because I'm thinking of the people watching this.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're actually thinking of their volunteers right now, thinking, you know what, I haven't affirmed them for a long time, or I've got a great team of people here.
That's cool.
Hopefully they're not thinking, man, I wish I had people like them. My team's terrible. They probably got great people there, and they just need to affirm them.
Well, and even some of the things you've heard in the podcast in terms of like encouraging and jumping in there and passion and
whatever Matt said.
that you begin, because I think as a leader you need to begin to think, I say this a lot to youth workers. If I got you 10 volunteers, would you want them? And they all say, yes, I want them. And they say, okay, what would they do? What would you do? And until you know what they would do and have kind of a quote-unquote job description for them, you can't, you're not ready for them, or else they just become excess baggage and they stand against the wall and
Arms
feel
folded.
ineffective and then leave.
Chaperones.
And then they go and become security for preachers.
We talk about that a lot, of taking people from chaperone standing against the wall to active minister, and I
From
think
chaperone to shepherd.
and I think the relational piece is a big part of that. Of when you start to really get to know people and have meals with them, and you're understanding their gifts and their passions. That just doesn't happen in a 10-minute brief of what's going to happen in the service, and here's what I need you guys to do. I think there does need to be those extra times outside where you're sitting around the dinner table, and that's when great conversations with Jim are like, wow, you can do that? You need to do that for us. You need to do that in our ministry. Or, with Chip.
Go to the movies and we talk afterwards. And
those are the times where you're really
You're talking to the cop.
People.
Wow, you can shut up.
And a simple piece of that is asking them to share their story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even before you bring a volunteer on, is tell me your story. See if you can't, with the discernment of the Holy Spirit in your life, see if you can't pull out some pieces of that story that might bring you, bring you more knowledge of who they are, that can't guide them into your ministry. It's good. Okay, what do we know about Jim?
Okay, I'm just telling you, he's live on the podcast right now.
What did he say about
He
catering?
said, what are you betting how old I am? Do you think I'm 68? What do we have? What do you guys say? I have the
said
answer.
52.
52.
I want to go younger just to affirm him.
No,
but I
but
think
tell the truth, that would be nice.
I think he's probably older than me.
How
old are you? 51?
I'm 50.
50.
I think he is 46.
He says, hilarious. I'm ancient. 55.
55.
Born in 1958.
Wow.
He
I'm
carries
telling you, he
himself.
does.
He's a 43, 45 at the
So that's
most.
6 years older than you.
55 would be 5 years older than me.
Didn't he say 56?
Nope. It's not cynicism. It's
Wisdom.
ignorance. What was it?
All right. Good show. Fun show. Seth, anything else?
That was really fun.
It was fun.
I'm glad we didn't do the negative volunteer. That's great.
Wait, so let's do that next week.
No, I didn't want
I'm telling you, without names,
I
could give you 3.
Honestly, this is an area where it's great to have one that's good and,
I think next week it's on.
I think
Seriously.
the person that I was thinking about when we were doing negative, I was thinking, I am such a better youth worker today because of how I learned to deal with him.
It's on next week. Next week we're doing it.
That's like a cliffhanger.
It is. We'll see you next time. Previously on. All right. That's it. You want to say the red light? You gonna go away? Huh? That's out. All right.
Love you guys. See ya. Web
Katie,
show
you got
at
30 seconds,
downloadyouthministry.com.
Stop.
Wow.
seconds?
30 seconds of awkward Katie moment.
No, there was plenty of that at the
Awkward
live
Katie.
show.
Yeah, I've got a funny story. Turn it on.
Cliffhanger.
Okay, it's off. Go.
So
It's
this
on.
week-
It's not. we were looking out for you.
I know.
You know who
we
your
care.
real friends are right now.
I know. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you guys are so
Red light.
gullible.
Red light.
You
Wait,
are
love all of you.
my
I love you the most.
Bye-bye.